Are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for joining us. Today we'll learn about smart buildings, tactics, and tools to transform your operational efficiency. I'm Ann Cosgrove, the editor-in-chief of Facility Executive Magazine, and the webinar today is presented by Intel, IOTM, and SkyFoundry. Before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. Please note the control panel that's on your screen. This is where you can submit questions in the question box in that panel. You can send your questions in at any time, and the speakers will be addressing them at the end of the presentation. Please note the orange arrow on the left side of that control panel. Clicking on that arrow will either expand or collapse the panel, so please be sure it is expanded so you can send in your questions. If at any time you experience a technical difficulty or have another type of question, please send us a message there as well, and someone will address that right away. Now I'd like to introduce your three speakers today. Yashesh Shroff is an IoT Platform Enabling Program Manager with Intel Corporation. Yash has 13 years of experience driving Intel's research, fab manufacturing supply chain, and software capabilities with vendors and partners to create new streams of operational cost savings via predictive analytics and connected manufacturing processes. In his current role, Yash focuses on developing joint ISV partner use cases, delivering end-to-end solutions that fits the software vendor, system integrator, and the end customer needs. He has a master's degree and a PhD in EECS from UC Berkeley and an MBA in finance from Columbia Graduate School of Business. Your next speaker will be Ron Victor. He's a Silicon Valley-based technology entrepreneur, and he has 20 years of experience launching new ventures at startups and Fortune 1000 technology companies. His current venture is IOTM Inc., a Silicon Valley startup that provides a secure, cloud-managed, easy-to-deploy software-defined network infrastructure. IOTM's IoT network infrastructure solution significantly reduces the complexities for any IoT deployment, including for smart cities, building automation, smart grids, energy installations, industrial automation, and more. Ron's domain experience and expertise includes IoT, wireless networking, voice over IP, streaming media, and broadband. And your third speaker today is John Petz. He's a partner at SkyFoundry. They are the developers of SkySpark, and that's an analytics platform for building energy and equipment data. John has over 30 years of experience in building automation, energy management, and machine-to-machine, M2M, having served in senior-level positions for manufacturers of hardware and software products, including as president and CEO of Tritium, VP Product Development for Andover Controls, and Global Director of Sales for Cisco Systems Smart and Connected Buildings Group. He's also a member of the Association of Energy Engineers. At SkyFoundry, John helps owners take advantage of advanced operational analytics to create truly intelligent buildings for their organizations. So we'll hear from Yash, Ron, and John in a few moments, but I do want to put up a poll on the screen first. We have two quick questions to ask you. The first will be on your screen in a moment. And we'd like to ask you to please answer this question according to your role in the organization. Are you an IT? Are you a facility manager? Are you a building portfolio manager, field technician, or other? We're just trying to get a sense of the audience so that our speakers can tailor their presentation accordingly. So please take a moment just to let us know what your role is, and then we will show the results on the screen. Okay, and let's see who we have with us today. Facility managers, 45%, and other, 48%. So followed by portfolio managers and field technicians. So thanks very much, and we'll just pop up the second question. And that should be up there. There we go. Can you just let us know how you describe your current knowledge of smart building solutions? You've just begun learning about the smart building solutions that are available. You've researched them but not deployed them. Have deployed a small number of smart building solutions to date, or have you deployed smart building solutions at scale? So please let us know where you're at with that in terms of learning and implementation, and then we'll also share that with you in a moment. Okay. All right. Thanks again, everyone. So let's see. We have the 37% just nudging out, just begun learning. So 37% you've deployed a small number of smart building solutions, okay? And just followed by have just begun learning. Researched but not deployed is 26%. So it looks like we're all in that kind of the top three there. So, all right, thank you very much. Now we will hand it over to Yash from Intel, and he's going to do an introduction for us. Hi, Yash.
Thank you, Anne. So as Anne mentioned, I am going to talk a little bit about some of the background in terms of why we are in this space. One of the major challenges that Intel has found, people asking around smart building and building automation is that this is complicated. It shouldn't be this complicated, etc. And we're here to basically let you know that this is actually a very streamlined approach, a process where Intel's partnerships with a number of software vendors, and IOTM and SkyFoundry are premier examples of these, allows us to really help you get insights for your building automation needs. But just to set a quick background in terms of where we are. So in the US alone, 30% of energy wastage actually comes from commercial and industrial buildings. And that is one of the primary factors that motivates facilities managers, operations folks to be interested in this. But increasingly, we have also found out that comfort and then productivity are two other factors that also are looked at much more seriously now than ever before in terms of helping advance the implementation of automation technologies in buildings. So the opportunity is huge. It is growing in the US. China and European Union are two other big examples. And I believe the numbers from 2015 to 2024 is nearly $55 billion of opportunity in just this space. So let's go to the next slide. So as I'd mentioned before, smart building systems, everyone has their own definitions, but what I really like to talk about initially is that this is something that really starts with some sort of green initiative in mind, some sort of sustainability goals in mind. But as one starts to kind of take a look at the usages into the building, a lot of other factors come into place. So whether it is about occupancy around conference rooms, the floor plan that one might have in terms of figuring out, okay, which are the most dense areas, which are the less dense areas, how can we actually streamline our lighting systems, how can we actually take advantage of the fact that much more of our open spaces are now used less and less, so how can we basically do a rebalancing of it? And that's ultimately the idea behind this, that people and places need to be connected, and it's now possible to do so in ways that really previously wasn't. The idea behind all of this is really for us to look at it in a way that allows this problem to be solved in a scalable and a secure way. So whether you're connecting to the HVAC system in the background, whether you're controlling temperature, whether you are determining the type of flow that people, personnel, employees, visitors have throughout your building, you want to be able to do this in a way that is intuitive. You want to be able to do it with some level of pattern insights that results in some sort of business insights. And that's ultimately where you kind of need to have a spectrum of compute at the edge. And you also need to have software partners that will help you build those insights. So let's talk about the larger vision in the next slide for where we want to see this evolving. So this is a bit of an eye chart, but I like to look at this really as not a siloed system, right? So our vision for a smart, connected building solution is that it needs to be adaptable, it needs to be intelligent, and the devices that are in various floors and even carried on personnel, such as badges and other things, need to be networked. And the idea behind this, the KPIs that we drive towards are ones that are around enhancing efficiencies and what we generally call, occupant experiences, right? So the comfort and productivity discussions I mentioned earlier. So how do we really do that? So it starts off by having, an intelligent business management solution, perhaps, on which you can have applications running. It starts with the end user specifying certain topical main areas that need to be covered in the approach that they want to take. And our typical areas, and this is what you can see on the left-hand side, is really, not just around HVAC, but water management, lighting, refrigeration. So what if you're running a local data center, then what sort of plug load do you have? How efficiently are your elevators utilized? But more importantly, and increasingly importantly, how can it all be managed in a very secure and scalable way? So tomorrow, if you have one building and you expand to two, making a campus, if you have one floor and then you want to bring in all the elements of the lobby or other areas, how do you essentially do that scalability? So those are the challenges in building management that we want to help address, overcoming the operational issues by putting together a stack that you can intelligently deploy in a rapid and cost-efficient manner. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Anne and have a couple of open questions.
Thank you, Yash. Yes, at this point, we will actually put up our third and final poll. This is a good time for that, so thank you. And you'll all see that on your screen. If you can take a moment to, again, let us know what your scenario is in your work. How many buildings are you currently managing as a facility manager, or we had some other technicians out there. In terms of your work, how many buildings are you managing, are you working on? And that range is 1 to 15, 16 to 30, 31 to 50, or over 50. So please give us a sense, and that'll help us with the content as we move ahead. And we will, again, show those results in a moment. Okay, so let's see, we should see that now. There we go. So about 60% of our audience manages between 1 to 15, Yash, and 16 to 30 follows that. Over 50, 13%, and we rounded out with 9% with the higher end. So it's good. Thank you very much for sharing, attendees. So now we're going to hand it over to Ron Victor at IOTM, and he will kind of delve a little bit deeper into the topic. Hi, Ron.
Thank you, Anne. Much appreciated. And thank you all to our listeners for dialing into this webinar. Really appreciate it. My name is Ron Victor. I am the founder and CEO of IOTM. As you can see on this slide, we are a company that provides secure network infrastructure that is offered as a service for the building automation vertical. That's one of the verticals we're very focused on. We today have connected already over 60 plus buildings in North America. We have made it very, very easy to do this. And by connected, we're talking about securely connected. Whenever I use the word connected, I mean securely connected. To us, connectivity without security is like trying to sell a car without wheels. You cannot say I'm going to buy a car and then I'm going to add on wheels to it. Neither can you say I'm going to connect a building without saying, and then I'm going to add security. It's got to be built in, and I'll address all of that. On this slide, you can see we have been funded by GE Ventures, Juniper Ventures, and March Capital. We're connecting at the rate of 2 to 3 buildings every week now, daily. And when we say we are securely connecting, what does this mean and how easy? And these buildings get connected in exactly 6 minutes flat. For those of you listening carefully on this one, literally 6 minutes is a building getting connected. There's all the complexity has been taken out. You can see that we have very strong partnerships with Sky Foundry. John Petsy is going to talk after me. They're the analytics, one of the analytics companies we work with, along with, of course, Niagara. A lot of large building automation distributors represent us across the country: Control Co, Yorkland, Relevant, ETC, and Panel Shop. You may have heard of all of them. And of course, Intel is a very strong strategic partner for what we do. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about the audience. The audience on this, so what I got out of the couple of surveys was the majority of the audience are facility managers. There was a very large other category, so I don't know what the other is. I guess the next time we run a poll, we'll have to specify a little more on the other. But the largest chunk we got was facility managers. That's number one. Now the other two takeaway I got is that most of the audience is still either trying to learn about connecting smart buildings, or has just thought about deployment, or has deployed at a very small scale. Nobody has deployed at scale. And then, of course, on the third survey, what was very interesting is there's a significant number of you that are managing quite a few buildings. So when we look at securely connecting a building, the first question to ask is, why do we even need to connect the building? I mean, the building's been functioning forever. I mean, what's the idea? So then we go back to what Yash said. All right, we're going to get all this energy efficiency. We're going to save the world a lot of money. We're going to have better productivity. Employees are going to feel better, all that good stuff. So now, all right, we got to connect the building. The first thing that typically comes to mind when you say you have to connect the building is, oh my God, this is going to be hard. I have a HVAC system from Honeywell. I have a lighting system from Enlightened. My chillers are from Trane. My access control is from Allerton and something. So I have 7 different subsystems in my building from 7 different manufacturers, all spitting out 7 different protocols, everything from Modbus to CAN bus to BACnet over IP to LawnWorks, etc. So if I have to connect this building and do all and send this data to SkySpark in the cloud and run all this analytics, the first thing I got to do is I got to hire a bunch of IT guys. So I got to call the IT department, and then the IT department's going to come and say, okay, for the 30 buildings that you manage, we will need to order 30 Cisco ASA routers. We will need to order 30 firewall boxes. I will send out an engineer to all these 30 buildings. He'll have to sit there. He's a very costly engineer. He's going to cost something like $350 an hour. He's Cisco certified. He's going to sit there and program all these boxes, configure rules, policies, DNS addresses. He's going to call all your enterprise IT guys, and he's going to say, hey, you need to change a firewall setting for me. You need to change a proxy setting for me so I can tunnel out, freeze that. Then you're going to have to call some kind of an operator, get an APN or a VPN of some sort, manage about 30 usernames and passwords if you're connecting 30 buildings, 100 usernames or passwords if you're connecting 100 buildings. Then you got to decide which technicians are you going to remotely allow in, what are their passwords. So it's 100 passwords multiplied by, the 4 vendors will have 4 different technicians, so you have to share those passwords. Lastly, after you do all of this, then you've managed to connect one building to wherever you wanted to take that data to. This process is anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months. That's what this. By the time you line up all of this together to happen, it's a 6-week to 6-month process. It's completely unscalable. There are 5.6 million buildings in North America that we all need to connect in our business. If you want to connect to 5.6 million buildings, then it's going to take you 6 weeks to 6 months to connect one. Forget about it. So what did we do? We took that entire complexity and made it a drop ship plug and play box. That's what we did. So remember when you all got your DSL modem 10, 15 years ago, AT&T shipped you a box. You said plug yellow cable here, plug blue cable there, turn it on, and you went to a browser and you were connected to the internet. We have done exactly the same thing where a box drop ships to the building, plug it on the south side to your Jace, to your building automation system, whatever it may be, plug it north side to the internet, and it's completely securely connected. You just need to hit the on button and you're done. So that's what we mean by deployment complexity. Now let's talk security. As I said, to us, selling connectivity without security is like trying to sell a car without wheels. It makes no sense. And security, there has to be 8 layers of security. So the facility managers on this, this would be very interesting for you because you're going to come across this quite a bit. A lot of people are going to say, hey, I have a VPN. Hey, I have 2-step authentication. Hey, I use encryption. But let me start for us where security starts. We are a bunch of guys out of Cisco, Juniper, Qualcomm, Wind River, and SafeNet. We have about 450 years of experience combined in this company only on routing and security. And we take it really seriously. And it starts with something called as hardware root of trust. What is hardware root of trust? Hardware root of trust is when all your certificates and keys, which are basically your parameters to connect, the authentication mechanism, are etched in silicon using Intel's EPID modules, Marshall Point module, etc., on a gateway. Why do you need that? Because you need a tamper-proof module with hardware root of trust, because if somebody is trying to open the box, you want to make sure that the box stops working so that nobody can nobody can manipulate your certificates right in hardware, starting right from the hardware on the box. That's number one. Number two, a secure managed operating system that is constantly patched on that gateway. Why do I say this? think for a second, right? Just step back and think. Whenever Microsoft sends you an update to your laptop, what does it ask you to do? What's the first thing it asks you to do? The first thing it'll ask you to do is click next. Now you have deployed this across 100 buildings. There is a patch that you have to deploy. It may be a Linux patch. Who is going to click next? I mean, how are you going to send a bunch of guys in trucks out there and say, go click next because we need to patch it? So you need a secure patch managed operating system, which is patch managed on a 7/24 basis from the cloud. That's number 2. Number 3, you need an architecture that does not involve any usernames and passwords, because there's no way we can remember 5.6 million usernames or passwords, or even 30 usernames or passwords. There are people on this call who are connecting 15 buildings, who are connecting 20 buildings and 50 buildings. You have to maintain spreadsheets of usernames and passwords. You have to then share that spreadsheet with the 4 different technicians from the 4 different manufacturers that you want them to enter the building to do remote access into. That whole model is unscalable, and therefore what happens in the end is a nice, beautiful sticky, which is laminated, taped onto the gateway, and says username equals user, password equals password, so that anybody who comes in just looks at it, and that's the way it works. So you got to eliminate usernames and passwords. Number 4, you have to eliminate the need to ever call the enterprise IT guys and say, please open up a firewall or change a proxy setting or whitelist me. Because if you have to do that, that's going to take you 6 months of approval, and very rightly so, because there's a lot of enterprise secure data. So what you want to do is to be able to connect the building without ever having to change enterprise IT and firewall policies. Number 5, you need to have a bookended solution. What is a bookended solution? And listen carefully, this is very interesting. In the physical world, when you go to FedEx and you drop a check in an envelope and you say, I want this check to be sent very securely to somebody somewhere else, what do you expect? What do you expect from FedEx? The thing you will always ask is, I want signature required. You'll always check that box so that you know somebody signed for this. How come in the digital connectivity world, we don't have somebody signing for a digital packet on the other side? That means when a packet left the building, did it reach the destination? Is there somebody that says, hello, ACK, I got the packet? So a bookended architecture allows you to do that. The 2 other things a bookended architecture allows you to do, and this is very interesting, for us, security is, we are paranoid more about a fraudulent employee than about the outside world. Yes, we can do everything you can do to protect the building from the outside. What do you do if somebody who has the keys to the kingdom on the inside has been bribed and is fraudulent? So the architecture of a bookended solution ensures that data leaving a particular source will only reach the original data sink it was supposed to reach, which means if the fraudulent employee tries to reroute traffic where we don't exist on the destination, the data will not leave the source itself, because the first thing we look for is ourselves on the other side. Therefore, a fraudulent employee cannot reroute traffic. Lastly, we'll talk about data isolation, which is the HVAC data, the lighting data, the chiller data, and the access control data should never touch each other on the way northbound. Even though they're using the same infrastructure, the same network, every subsystem should be isolated. Why should it be isolated? You all know what happened to Target in 2015. Very innocently, what happened? HVAC technician logging into the building, by mistake clicks on a phishing email, something starts proliferating, but the HVAC network is not isolated from the IT network. So now the hackers hack from they hop on from the OT network to the IT network, from the IT network to the point of sale network, because there's no secure isolation of these networks, and therefore they steal credit card numbers. So this is all security. When we talk security, we talk about 8 layers of security in the transport layer. Lastly, and this is all built into the product. You don't have to worry about all of this. Nothing. It all comes standard. There's no options here, like you're buying a car. It's all standard. And then the last one is the future proofing of your deployment. What does this mean? This means that, okay, once you've deployed something, now you decide later that, hey, I want to deploy SkySpark from SkyFoundry, and I want to deploy the clustered version of SkySpark, which is going to run at the edge of the building, which means it's going to run in the building and not in the cloud. Why would you do that? Because you don't want all the data coming all the time to the cloud. You want to send only relevant data to the relevant entity at the relevant time. Therefore, you're going to run analytics in the building. To do that, how would you deploy SkySpark in the building? Are you going to take a truck and go, with a computer and go to every building and install SkySpark? When there's a new patch that SkySpark launches or SkySpark 2.0 launches, how are you going to deploy that? What it means very simply is you need a centralized app store, an industrial app store where you can choose an application and you can say, I want to deploy it in these 15 buildings, click, and the application is deployed, and we've enabled that too. So all of this has been made very, very simple. We literally are the easy button for secure connectivity for buildings. As I said, that's the reason people are deploying us left, right, and center, connecting 2 to 3 buildings every day in 6 minutes flat. Next slide, please. So here is the fundamentals, and this is why we exist, and this is the business reason. Our philosophy are the 4 gray boxes. Absolutely no command line interface. What is the no command line interface? You will never need a technician to take a keyboard to the building and type something. 100% connectivity, secure connectivity managed completely from the cloud. No 192.1.1, no gateway equal to, no DNS equal to, no whitelisting of this or that. Absolutely no truck roll. No usernames and passwords, and you know why, and no changes to the enterprise IT firewall and policy. So those are the fundamentals on that's the deployment complexity part, and then the security part. I already mentioned the 8 layers of security. Go ahead, next slide, please. So once you have, when you look at this slide, which you're gonna, this part of the net, if you look through the gray at the back. So you'll see 3 or 4 boxes hiding behind the gray at the back. And what are those? One is the protocol software adapter layer. This is your BACnet over IP protocol software adapter, your LawnWorks adapter, your SCADA adapter, your Modbus adapter, CAN bus adapter. That entire layer has been abstracted out, is made available in the cloud. The operator layer is completely abstracted out. Either end can now be on any operator. We just need basic internet access. There's no APN, there's no VPN, so one side can be on AT&T, the other can be on T-Mobile, one can be on Vodafone, the other can be on Deutsche Telekom. We've also abstracted out the infrastructure layer. One side can be on 3G, the other on 4G, the another side on T1, and the other side on MPLS. What does this mean? What's a good analogy to explain this? Think Skype for a second, guys. For those of you who have used Skype, Skype has 2 clients on either end. You don't care whether you're on a laptop, you're on a handset, you're on a tablet. You don't care whether you're on Mac OS, you don't care whether you're on Linux, you don't care whether you're on Android. You don't care whether you're on AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. You don't care whether you're on 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi. You don't care whether you're on Intel or on AMD. You don't care whether you're on Symantec or you're on McAfee. All that complexity has been completely abstracted out. There are 2 clients on either end. You install the client, hit click, a secure peer-to-peer tunnel is created, and you have a voice call. We make that possible for building to building, machine to machine communication. Hit click, and a secure tunnel is created from the building to the application, and you're done. The management is, of course, it's a complete zero-touch install. You can do now patch management of everything. You can manage the firmware of the devices you are connected to. I don't know if any of you read about the Murai attack a little earlier last year when 400,000 cameras got hacked. So the cameras have got hacked. You need to patch up. The manufacturer of the camera comes up with a patch. The question is, the 400,000 cameras are across 8 cities. How do you patch it? So what you need is the app store where you just go enter the patch and at one click, push it and deploy it through us across those 400,000 cameras. That's the remote patching of the patching of the operating system that's running on the gateway. The patching of the application running, SkySpark itself, Niagara itself, etc. How do you patch these applications running at the edge? So all of that comes to application lifecycle management, which is remote updates. Now, I'll talk about complexity a little later, and what this does is the solution has a built-in firewall that is the secure perimeter that's at the bottom, and all these complex layers are completely abstracted out. Next slide, please. So this is what that picture suddenly looked like. You notice all those boxes that were behind the gray have gone away. You don't care about what protocol software adapter you need, what infra you're on, what operator you're on, as well as how insecure either end may be. We form a secure virtual overlay network to allow you to be able to transport data from point A to point B, literally within 6 minutes flat, and applications from the cloud to the edge. Very, very highly put, we are FedEx for building automation. We pick up packets, we drop them off to an application, we pick up applications, drop them off to the building. That's what we do in a nutshell. Next slide, please. We are available on a plethora of substrates. The way this solution works is the fact that at the building, we're a piece of software that runs on on hardware like this. So we can also run as virtual machines completely, but 90% of the cases you don't have a virtual machine running at the building. So we reside on certified third-party hardware that looks like this. The way you choose the hardware is, do you need hardware root of trust? What kind of interfaces do you need on the south side? Do you need a Ethernet, SCADA, Modbus, CAN bus? Do you need Zigbee, Z-Wave? How much memory and compute depends on the applications you're going to run. Are you going to run encryption, compression, dedupe, DPI, machine learning, or SkySpark, etc.? All of these are available in our industrial app store to be dropped with one click to be pushed to the edge. Do you need a ruggedized box, or you don't need a ruggedized box? Could you go back one slide, please? Yeah, thank you. So if you look at this, the inode is that little thing with the IOTM logo right at building number 1 and building number 2. Those are those two boxes at the edge. The same piece of software is residing as a virtual machine in each of those clouds. You can see the SkySpark cloud there. There we're residing as a virtual machine. Those clouds can be completely different. One cloud can be Azure, the other can be AWS, one can be IBM Bluemix, the other can be VMware, another can be OpenStack. Doesn't matter. What the IOTM, the orange part, that is the orchestration layer only. Absolutely no data will ever come to IOTM. Data goes directly from the data source to the data sink. So these are your two, just like I gave you the Skype analogy, this is your analogy here. Which inode is supposed to talk to what other inode is all done from that orange orchestrator in the cloud. You say, if you want the HVAC data at the bottom there to reach the HVAC cloud on top, you'll just say, I want the inode on building number 1 to connect to the inode in the other cloud. If you want the lighting data to go to the lighting vendor's cloud, to say, I want the inode on top of building 2 to connect to the inode. So literally click, 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 and that's done. But the whole thing is completely secure, and there's a lot of security elements that we can talk in at length when we go. Next slide, and the slide after, please. We can go to the next, hop on. Thank you. So here's the way the solution works. This is the magic. The box has reached the building. Somebody has plugged it into the BAS, turned it on. Next, please. Through absolutely any firewall or proxy on the planet, this box goes out to the orchestrator, gets authenticated with a whole bunch of certificates and keys. There was no change to the enterprise firewall or proxy setting whatsoever. Next, please. Now, policies get downloaded. What are the policies? Which node is supposed to talk to which other node? What data is coming on what port of the box? Next, please. So here you can see it has a built-in firewall. It protects everything south side. Next. Here is your secure peer-to-peer tunnel from the data source to the data sink, immediately, just like I mentioned. Next, please. Here is your secure data isolation. So this is where the fire alarm stream will never touch the HVAC stream, will never touch the environment monitoring stream, all built into the technology. Next, please. Now you can push absolutely any application to the edge. So you go to the orchestrator and you say, I would like to deploy Sky Foundry to these 15 buildings. You select the 15 inodes you want to deploy it to, select Sky Foundry and hit push. And now Sky Foundry is running as a container at the edge at the building. Next, please. And the whole thing is multi-tenanted, so you can send the HVAC data to one cloud, the fire alarm data to another cloud, the environment monitoring to a third, whatever you like. Next. Great. This is the screenshot for you to deploy applications. So you can see you just chose you can choose SkySpark here, enter the license file, and with one click, push it out. So what this means is at the edge, that box at the edge for the IT guys on this call is a router, a switch, a VPN concentrator, a firewall, and a hypervisor, all combined into one in one box. That's just, and then completely managed 100% from the cloud. Absolutely no keyboard required. Next, please. And that same software runs in the cloud as a virtual machine at the destination. So very simply put, secure provisioning and management, completely zero touch. You can literally, all of you facility managers, if you want to move away from thinking about doing this, just call us. Between John Petz here, Sky Foundry, myself at IOTM, and Yash. Literally 6 minutes, your buildings will start getting connected. It is completely secure. There's all kinds of audit logs available, and then you can push all kinds of applications to the edge. I think this is my last slide, Anne. Oh, this is just a use case to show people. And what I wanted to show was you can have multiple floor nodes talk to a building node, multiple building node to a campus node. So you can build a hierarchical architecture on how much isolation you want. And of course, take the data everywhere. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And now we will hear from John Petch at Sky Foundry. Hi, John.
Hello, thanks. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Angela. So what I'd like to do in this last segment here is trying to tie this all together with examples of the applications that serve the building owner to optimize their efficiency. We've seen how the technology provided by Intel allows for processor platforms to be deployed in the building, or cost-effective process platforms. We've seen how IOTM provides a complete secure networking layer to securely connect those buildings together. Now, in my section here, I want to talk about one of the primary applications that are helping building owners, and that's using data analytics to create truly smart buildings. Next, please. So you may be hearing a lot about the word analytics, and quite simply, what is it? Well, we're talking about the ability to create value by detecting patterns in the data that's coming from our building systems. We have many systems in buildings, obviously, and they produce a tremendous amount of data, more data than human beings can manually view, analyze, and respond to. And yet that data has tremendous value. So the question is, how can we get the value out of that data? How can we detect deviations, faults, anomalies, all of the things that are opportunities for us to improve the operation of our facilities, to understand degradations, et cetera. And that's what we mean by analytics. Next. So that's what our software does. Our company makes the SkySpark informatics platform. And what it does is it consumes data from building equipment systems and then automatically applies rules and algorithms to that data to detect these patterns that represent faults, issues, and of course, opportunities for improvements and cost reduction. Next. Well, what this really enables us is to become data-driven in how we operate our facilities. I would say that historically we've been experience-driven, right? Experts with many years of experience basically feel out issues and opportunities in the building, but we need to move to a more data-driven way to run our buildings because we have so much data coming in, and there's no slowing down the proliferation of devices and equipment systems. And I just want to focus on one brief example. There are many, many examples. Next, please. This is an example of a successful case study. This actually comes from a Department of Energy Better Buildings Challenge competition, the Sprint headquarters. And the point here is that by looking at the data, they identified issues that they are able to address quickly to reduce consumption and drop significant money directly to the bottom line. Today, SkySpark's been deployed in over 13,000 facilities, over 1 billion square feet. So there's lots of case studies and proof points around lots of different types of facilities for any of you on the call that are interested. And I think we can show you ones that are very much like your facilities. Next. So we want to talk about, analytics as a general concept is analyzing the data. So how does it tie in with this conversation we're having today about Intel-based nodes out in the building, secure network infrastructure that allows deployment out in the building? And what we're really talking about is distributed Internet of Things systems. We're not going to be able to bring every piece of data from every sensor up to the cloud before we can do anything with it. There is a need to be able to deploy analytics out at the edge where you have greater reliability for data collection and storage. You have better security because the insecure equipment networks are never leaving the building. You have reduced data transmission if you're over cellular networks. And these nodes, as we've seen, are fairly small, low cost, edge gateways, on-premise servers, et cetera. And what we've been able to do with our technology is bring the full analytics feature set out to those nodes that sit in the building directly connected to the equipment systems and then securely connected over the infrastructure as IOTM is shown. Next, please. And what we end up is with an architecture concept like this. You see the small colorful icon there. That's showing how the analytics technology, the SkySpark Everywhere software, can be deployed from the cloud to the building, even to equipment systems within the building. We have a number of OEMs that are now deploying the analytics directly into controller type devices that would be in an equipment room running a air handler or a chiller plant or a boiler plant, et cetera. So we've enabled the distributed architecture with our software, but without the hardware platforms, the Intel-based, and without the secure network infrastructure and deployment capabilities, IOTM, then we don't have the ability to cost effectively offer this. But combining the technologies, we do. Next, please. And we can just zoom in a little bit more here in this picture. We can see SkySpark running in the cloud, connected securely to the building. You see the IOTM image logo there. Connected to those field buses that are typically legacy, non-IP based, non-secure networks. So that all that data gets collected there at the facility. The data gets aggregated there. The analytics are performed there. And then only the analytic results, correlations, faults, deviations need to traverse the network to the user. And again, that's over a secure network. The other thing it provides is that in the building, local operators can have direct access to the analytic results. We see many applications where in-building personnel do not have the ability to reach out over the internet to be able to get their data. And next. So we just want to spend a last moment or two on, what does this look like? What do these tools provide for the people who run buildings? And that gets into the topic of, how do we make data analytics findings meaningful to operators? Next. So in order to make the results of data analytics meaningful to operators, we need to help them understand what they're seeing and help them drive action to address those issues. And it comes down to the topic of how do we create visualizations that make it easy for operators to understand what has been found, when it's been found, where it's been found. And there's been lots of tools that allow you to create graphic elements related to buildings, but typically they require significant cost and effort. And if we're going to have to invest significant artist costs or graphic development costs before operators can see what's been found, then it's not going to be cost effective. And what we've been able to do with analytics technology, utilizing the very latest data technologies, is we've created solutions that automatically generate the results for the building operator, automatically build colorful, informative graphic presentations that historically required a lot of effort to create. Let's look next. And these are just some screen examples showing patterns that have been found in the data, comparing against weather and energy consumption, showing things like bubble charts that show the magnitude of issues that have been found, and automatically calculating key performance indicators and generating the views and reports on that. This is all a result of technology that can automatically interpret the data, interpret the findings, and generate these visualizations, making this new age of analytics cost effective for building owners. And one more time next. The other thing we've done, though, is we've created simple point and click tools that allows operators to tailor their views, to combine those different widgets, if you will, to say, I want these 4 pieces of information on the screen, but yet I'm not a software developer. I don't want to hire a software developer. I want to be able to do it with a point and click tool. And that's what we've done with a new technology called View Builder. So the point here is that we're able to connect the data, we're able to securely do that, we're able to perform analytics, and then we're able to show the results to operators easily so that they can understand what's been found and take action. And it brings us to my final point, next, which is that you have an important financial resource at your availability, the data that's in your buildings, that's in your equipment systems. It is really a form of financial value. And as we like to say, data, it is the new money. Start taking advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, this is Anne back online, and thank you everyone for your attention and to the three gentlemen for all that great information. It was really a lot of good information, and we have some time for some questions. So please send your questions in, and we'll start off with one right now. So John, I'm going to start from the end where you just kind of were speaking about data and data analytics while it's still fresh here. You talked about data analytics and the ease of use in terms of the system that you offer, the software you offer. Can you just talk a little bit about, even though it is so easy, what parameters or guidelines can facilities people or other users enter into the system to get the type of data analytics they want in terms of how do they, in other words, how do they customize that? What type of input are they putting in to make sure they're getting what they want from those analytics? How does that work?
Sure. And you know, we don't want to overly simplify this thing. You have lots of systems in buildings. You have to understand what those systems are, what they're capable of providing, right? And how that would relate to your organizational goals. For example, we see many customers with building portfolios start simply with their metering data. Get your metering data, whether it's coming live through metering systems in your building or a web service feed from the utility company or some other means, and apply the level of analytics appropriate for meter data. There's a number of analytic rules or library that apply to your consumption data, your demand data to detect patterns, buildings starting too early, running too late, schedules overridden, having peaks at times of the day when your energy costs or your demand charges are too high. So, you know, the first thing you have to do is assess what data they have, right? How can it be connected to what's available so that they can connect it into the infrastructure that we've been presenting here. And that's really where some of the most important input from the owner-operator comes from, assessing what they have and matching it up against business goals. Organizations that may be further down the road in using analytics, they've already looked at the meter data, et cetera. Now they're connecting to the equipment systems, and they're collecting the data from sensors, from control points, et cetera. And then analytic rules are applied to the equipment systems to detect degradation of performance, efficiency, those types of things. And then finally, the presentation of the data. What we find the learning process there is that the automatically generated screens provide tremendous insight and understanding. And then, the teams running buildings say, well, I really would like to combine these three things together on the same report, view, and screen. So that's kind of the process, at a high level, conceptual level.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then we'll talk about scalability for a minute here, going back to Ron's piece and anyone else who would like to comment. So the question is, what if I do want to try this on one or two buildings in my portfolio first in terms of putting, Internet of Things technology in, perhaps with the IOTM solution. So do you have customers that have done that in terms of scalability? One or two buildings, they want to try it out, maybe see how it works, what they're getting out of it. Can you talk about what that process is like in terms of implementation? I know it's 6 minutes flat, but what's that like for them? And then what do they learn as they decide when and how to add more buildings? Maybe, how does that scalability work? Any examples in terms of, customers you had?
Absolutely, yes. We have a bunch of customers. Today we connect everything from high schools to college campuses to enterprise skyscrapers to malls and hospitals, all of that. And yes, there are a lot of people who start with 2 buildings, 2 schools, and then go to 4, and then go to 10, etc. And what this entails is, of course, signing up with us. There's a complete sales order process. A box just drop ship shows up at the building you want connected. Your regular building automation technician on his next visit connects it on the south side. He could connect it either into a BAS, like a JACE, into the building automation system, like a JACE on the south side, or he might connect it only into the HVAC system, whatever you want connected. And that box has 2 options for going northbound. If you have a switch available to where, if you have guest Wi-Fi available in your building, you would just plug this into a port where the guest Wi-Fi router is. That's the same port. So you have to do literally nothing. You plug it for the north side. Or if you want to go cellular, the box has an option to go with cellular too. And that's it. And the building, as I said, you'll start seeing the traffic come to the SkySpark application in the cloud instantly. There's a portal to log on to. You just log in, you're given the credentials, and you'll see your data, and that's it. And then you look at that, and most people's jaw drops that really we did it was that simple, and then they immediately will start ordering. Send me 5 more for this location, another 10 more for that, and that's the way it works.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so then we have, looks like we have a last question here, and that is kind of talking about the process of incorporating this as well, just in terms of actually reaching out to find out more. So who would I reach out to? This is the question. Who would I reach out to find more about the solution you've been talking about? Is it one of the parties on this webinar, or can they ask their service provider? Kind of what is the chain there in terms of learning more?
I think for analytics and Sky Foundry, John's the point guy, and then John will point it out to his sales guy and forward the information. And for me, you can, for IOTM, just send it to ron.victor@IOTM. Happy to farm it out. And then of course, the sales guys here, there's a process, the lead can. But since that's the email address you guys have up in front of you, just use that, and then I can forward it to the required people to immediately get in touch. And it could either be through one of our distributors, Yorkland or Relevant or Hepta, etc., or depending on the size of the project and what you're trying to do, we also have a smart access solution which we can talk about at length, and then decide which is the right way. But use my email address. Feel free and connect.
Same here for Sky Foundry. We'd be happy to talk to you, and we have lots of real world examples to show people, what's involved in assessing and moving towards deployment. So.
Thank you. Okay, well then I will thank the 3 gentlemen. I thank you very much for the presentation, and of course to our audience for your attendance and your attention. We will have this webinar available online at facilityexecutive.com if you'd like to reference that for future. And I again want to thank Intel, IOTM, and Sky Foundry for presenting the webinar. Thanks you very much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.